Hello and welcome to the presentation on definition of done for user stories. We'll cover various details on this topic. Definition of done. We'll try to understand what definition of done is and what are the key things you should be focusing on to have a precise definition of done. A definition of done is an agreement between the team and the business product owner on what done means. You might have faced situations where if you go to a developer or a QA person and ask, have you uh, done your task, or then they may come up and say, yes, I have done, but I have so and so, or this thing still left, or these or that things still, I'm about to do that. And sometimes it's truly they mean by done as completed, but the understanding for done that you have and the understanding a developer has for a task to be done might be different. For a developer, understanding for done is he has done his coding required, but for you it's coding and the documentation. So i- the definition should be clear. Definition of done should be clear and concise list of requirements that a software increment must adhere to for the team to call it done. Be precise enough to avoid ambiguity, yet you need to be flexible to be changed between sprints to reflect improvement by the team. It cannot be within the same sprint, but yeah, you can allow things to come, which again you have to realign to different sprints, where there might be a situation where feel, yeah, during the sprint you realize that there could be one more uh, mm, point that could add to our definition of done. Fine, that's always it could happen and it's flexible, but yeah, it you can record that, but be flexible to take it in a future sprint. Easily understood by the team, business product owners and stakeholders. So the definition should not be so technical that the stakeholder or the business product owner say, I really don't understand, or I have no idea what uh, the your requirement is. I mean, you have incorporated. So it should not be so technical that uh, they the business product owner doesn't understand it, or they don't know what uh, is the functionality that we are going to build it. So it should be in a language that should be understood by the business product owner, as well as it helps the developers. And focus, and the definition of done should always focus on overall quality of all deliverables and not on specific stories on an isolated deliverables. The team and the business product owner must reach to an agreement on the definition of done together before each sprint or iteration begins. So once you have come to an agreement for definition of done, during the functioning of the sprint, it cannot be changed. You adhere to it. If you have observed some things that can be incorporated to the definition of done, that could be a part of the future sprints. So during the sprint, it remained unchanged. That should be respected throughout the sprint and during the sprint review, retrospective, and awarding of story points for velocity. Until the list of requirement is satisfied, the product increment is not done. Uh, so there are few areas where you need to have you can say a definition of done have a different understanding. So at different levels, the definition of done could vary and has a different meaning to it. So at a sprint or iteration level, you might be looking on do we have all the, yes, user stories or the PBIs that are picked up as per the understanding that we have during the sprint. So that should be an understanding like in terms of priority, what are the things that you will be putting up during the sprint. So that's a different definition of done. Similarly for release, you have a different requirements. You may look into the security levels. You may look into the timings when these release has to happen. Prior to release, you might need to complete some documentation that has been planned and listed. You do those checklists. So the release might have a different definition of done at the release level. Similarly for project, you might have some requirements from the PMO to have the precise documents that should be uh, ready before uh, or during the project iterations. So those could be the definitions for the at the project levels. Again, there are many things that will come under that. So it has a different definition of done for project, release, and sprint or iteration. Similarly, the user story will user story will have a different focus for the definition of done. So current presentation will focus on user story. So what definition of done should be for user stories. So the basic thing is like the primary artifact used to describe system behavior. So the user story should be the primary artifact which used to describe system behavior and business value to a user or a group of users. So it should have key things in it, like who is going to, the story should say that what is the person or the role of that person is going to do something to achieve a value out of it. And the story should always be independent. So what it means by independent is it should not have a dependability that unless you do this task, this story cannot be uh, built, or it cannot be tested, or it doesn't have any it will not add any uh, unless the first portion is complete, the second part cannot be developed. So that kind of thing is, that dependability is there, then it's not a proper user story. So it should be independent, can be taken up in any sprint, and can be built independently. And it should be negotiable, can be solved in various ways. The story does not stipulate the technical solutions. It can be functional way, there might be some solutions that could be available and can be built in a various ways. And it should add a value. The value to the business should be clear and defined within the story. Estimable. The team feels comfortable providing an estimate for the particular user story. There should not be ambiguity in that, so that the developer team will not be sure that how much effort they may have to put in because the story is not clear. So it should be very, and they should feel comfortable and very precise to provide estimate for that story. It should be small. The entire story can be completed in a single iteration, single sprint. If it cannot be, then it's not a proper user story, and it can be further broken down to a level where it can be completed in a sprint. And the next part is the QA. So it should be testable, concrete test that can demonstrate the value to the business, product owner and stakeholders. So now we will look into what benefits you will get out of when you have a definition of done. There are many. So what are the key things that should be part of user story, uh, which will give a clear definition of done for a user story? The technical specs or technical specification documents should be complete and signed off by the architects. Studio team and business product owners agree that all functional and non-functional requirements, that includes performance, accessibility, security, are presented in the acceptance criteria. Functional test cases that reflect all acceptance criteria are written and signed off by the BSA and are reviewed and are approved by the business product owner. Code has been completed, refactored, commented, checked in, and run again in the current version in source control. Code meets all design and development standards. All unit tests are written pass. The solutions build should be without errors or bugs. So it should be properly tested to the level uh, that the quality should be acceptable by the end users. All QA functional tests have been executed in QA environment with zero critical or high defects and a minimum pre-agreed number of medium or low. This again depends on organization to organization process and the quality of uh, the business owners and the product owner have come to an agreement with. Target is set as a team at a team level before the sprint beginning. So all QA function tests have been executed in QA environment with zero critical or high level defects and a minimal pre-agreed number of medium and low. Target is set as a team before the sprint beginning. Product owners agreement that the complete functionality meet the business requirement per the acceptance criteria. So before a start of a sprint, the product owner can go back in and look into the acceptance criteria and approve it. All build development or configuration changes have been implemented, documented and communicated with the required stakeholders. All relevant documentation is up to date and approved by the engagement manager or product owner, architects, BFA, and business product owner as appropriate and applicable to different organizations and how they call their stakeholders and based on the required information they have to share with them. All to-do items of the user story are complete and marked as done in TFS or any other tool that you follow in your organization.